Hello, hello, and welcome. I am Web Weaver, and I'm so glad that you have found my channel here today. So, what we're going to talk about today is the Sabbat of Lammas or Lunasa. This is one of the 8 Sabbats that is located in what we call the Wheel of the Year. So, if you're new to paganism, you're just curious about what the Wheel of the Year is, I have done a video on that. You can find that in my playlists. And it'll give you an overview of all of the 8 Sabbats and what we celebrate. This video is going to go into more detail about Lammas, also known as Lughnasadh. So we'll go ahead and get started. So Lammas, also called Lughnasadh, is the first of 3 harvest festivals on the Wheel of the Year. Lammas comes before summer solstice and autumnal equinox. The calendar date is August 1st, but if you fall, and that's perfectly fine to celebrate on August 1st. The calendar dates are meant so that it's always at the same time every year. You're celebrating the same energies, the same seasons, and it gives you that nice, you always know what the date is. Astrologically, Lammas falls when the sun hits 15 degrees Leo. So that date is usually around the 6th or 7th of August every year, but it's not always on the same day. So that's where the difference is. So when we plan celebrations for Sabbats, we like to tie in as many correspondences as we can for the season. Now, correspondences, if you are unfamiliar, are items, things that correspond to the season, things that connect you to the season. Colors. This time of year, we think of reddish browns, we think oranges, we think yellows, we think golds. That is very much Lammas themed, and sometimes they overlap. Letha has some of those colors, Lammas has those colors, Mabin has some of those colors, but you use the colors that connect to the season. Does that mean you can't use other colors? Absolutely not. If you have colors or stones or foods or decorations, anything that connects you to the energy of the season personally, use them. Okay? That's perfectly fine. But there are correspondences that have been put together for people who maybe don't have those connections yet. That's perfectly fine too. So as I said, for llamas, golds, browns, reddish browns, kind of like the sweater I have on here, oranges, yellows, those would be colors that we think of for llamas. You would do the same with incense and stones and foods. For llamas, we usually do a lot of corns and breads and vegetables. Okay. Um, for example, if you're baking some bread for llamas, using herbs that you put into that bread, such as rosemary and thyme, they have very warm connections, right? So you would then be tying in that warmth of the sun, the theme of the sun and fire into your food, bringing those energies in. That's what we're talking about with correspondences. If you are not familiar with correspondences, you're not entirely sure what to do, you're new on this path, there are resources. The internet is a great resource. If you like written works, having books that you can just pull off the shelf and look at, Llewellyn's what was it called? Complete Book of Correspondences is a great place to start. It's got correspondences for everything. And you can tie in, if you're working with fire and llamas and some other theme, finding an herb or a flower or a plant that ties into all 3 really boosts that energy. So that's my tip for planning the rituals, is look into the correspondences or figure out what you feel are your personal correspondences for the season. So let's go ahead and look at these 2 rituals, these 2 celebrations. The names are typically used interchangeably. Some people refer to it as Lammas, some Lughnasadh, some do the Lammas/Lughnasadh. So they are really used interchangeably at this point. But their histories are just a little different. Okay. Lammas is just the English name for the celebration that was held at Lughnasadh, which is the celebration of the first harvest, the harvest of the bread, the harvest of the grains. Um, you're not harvesting bread, but the harvest of the grains to make the bread. Um, it's that celebration of the first harvest of the season. That is the English word. It comes from the Old English and it means loaf mass. I do have my notes here if you hear the paper, making sure I stay on track. Um, Loaf mass is just an Old English word. It's the celebration of the first harvest, but it is not connected with a specific deity. Generally, Lammas just celebrates in general the sacrificial king. The idea of the king, the green man, growing in the plants, being harvested, chopped down, sacrificed, so that we, the people, can have food. He is sacrificing himself for others. So it's that general sacrificial king theme that you have going on at this first harvest for Lammas. But Lammas, the first harvest, did come from the celebration of Lughnasadh. Lughnasadh is connected to the Celtic god Lugh, Lugh. And Lugh is a sun god. He is also known as a god of many crafts. He's able to do a lot of different things. Many times our Lammas or Lughnasadh celebrations had archery and spear throwing and things like that incorporated as just fun activities to do, like a big family picnic. So he had many skills, but he's also connected to agriculture and the harvest. So modern pagans tend to celebrate Lugh as a sacrificial god, a sacrificial sun god, because the sun's power is waning at this point. We are heading toward Samhain. We are in the dark side of the year. But the origin story of Lughnasadh is not about the death and sacrifice that Lugh has made. Instead, it is a funeral or celebration of life for his stepmother or foster mother. I've seen it written both ways. So Lugh's stepmother is, how do you pronounce this? Taltu, I believe. She was an earth goddess. And she went through Ireland and removed, in the mythology, removed all of the stones from the fields of Ireland so that they could then be planted. People could grow food and survive. That's very important. But the work she had done was hard work. It wore her out. And she eventually died because of it. She was the one that made the sacrifice in this story. So the celebration of Lughnasadh was a celebration of her life. Over the centuries, the celebration of Lughnasadh and it moving to England, where you have a completely different set of beliefs, that story kind of got lost. Lugh got tied into the sacrificial king, sacrificial god, and then it just became a general, the sacrifice of the plant to feed us. So some people still celebrate it as Lughnasadh, celebrating Lugh, celebrating his mother. For some people, it's just the first harvest, bringing in the grain so that way we can live. So I and my husband were trained in an eclectic tradition. We belonged to a coven that no longer exists. Um, and the rituals that were held by the coven changed every year. It depended on who was planning them and what they wanted to put together. It was not a set, we had an outline of an order of ritual, but the activities varied depending on who put the ritual together. So it didn't matter. Sometimes we had the games, the archery, the spear throwing, the swimming races, that kind of thing. Sometimes we didn't. Sometimes it was just an internal meditation and making the corn dollies. So it really just, it depended on who planned it and what they wanted to do, and whether or not they tied it to Lu or whether it was just the first harvest. Despite these differences, there was a common theme, and I'm going to share that with you. So, um, this theme carried over from year to year. And every year at Imbolc, when I do the video for Imbolc, I'll talk more about this, but we made a dedication to what was called our great work. Every person had their own great work. We did also have a big coven one, but every person had their own great work. And it was tied into what you wanted to learn that year. Maybe you wanted to study tarot, or you wanted to study runes, or something along those lines. Or maybe it was you wanted to work on balancing your fire energy. Maybe you have a lot of fire and you feel very angry all the time. You want to try to balance that. Maybe you want to focus on the mysteries of earth and find a way to ground yourself. It depended on what you wanted to do, what you felt called to do through meditation. It was a way for you to learn and grow every year so that you could become a better you. So at Lammas and Lughnasadh, we had done our great work. We'd started our great work. We are now harvesting the first harvest of that great work. So we are claiming our achievements. What have we achieved so far this year? What have we done? What have we learned? How have we progressed? How have we improved? But at the same time, the year is not over yet. We are not done. This is not finished. It is not finished until Samhain. So at Lammas or Lughnasadh, we also accepted that there was work that still needed to be done. That we took our first harvest in, but we still have a harvest at Mabon, and we still have the final harvest at Samhain. So what work are we going to do to bring in those final harvests in the months to come? So those were the big themes of Lughnasadh. While we are not part of a coven any longer, um, every year we put together rituals for the Sabbats, and at Lammas, we will be up here where I am sitting. You can see our fire pit right there. We have a ritual. We roast corn, or we put our energies into the corn of what we have achieved for the year so far. That is our achievement. We then cook the corn and we eat it. We take it in, we embody it. We've done these things. And then we also make a corn dolly from the husks, where we peeled the corn back and we have our husks. We make dollies. And those are what we still need to harvest. Those are the things we still need to work on. And we make those dollies, we keep them on our altars, and then we burn them at Samhain so that they are put into the funeral pyre, if you will. This was something we always did with our coven. It was very meaningful. The meditations were always helpful. But those are some examples of activities you could do. I've also seen in one of the books where you can use the silks and braid the silks. Doing a braiding activity is very magical, putting your intention into that. So you can do that as well. And maybe you can come up with your own ideas once you get started, things that are meaningful to you. But that is Lammas or Lughnasadh. You can make a bread man and have the bread man as part of your feast. Um, this year, I think I'm going to try to make some cinnamon cupcakes. The cinnamon has the fiery warmth of the sun, right? But cupcakes, because it's flour and it's grain, and it's very meaningful for the season. So, um, however you celebrate, if you celebrate, I hope you have a blessed Lammas. If you are just curious and you were just here for information, I hope that this uh, helped you better understand Lammas or Lughnasadh for yourself, or maybe for someone you know who has started down this path. Either way, I hope you have enjoyed the information. Don't hesitate to comment if you have any questions about the Sabbath. And I will see you back with another one of these videos at Mabon. Blessed be.